Hello, welcome back to Shamanic Cacao, and we're in the Vai Cacao ceremonial cacao box. And today we're going to Costa Rica. Always sustainably grown from beans and supporting local families. And cacao is so ridiculously good for you. Minerals and vitamins, and can be an aphrodisiac if drunk in higher amounts with the right kind of people. There's also their way of preparing it with the spices that they recommend. So it's a completely paper bag, and this was a really strange chalky texture of cacao that I hadn't experienced before. I thought maybe I could snap it because it felt quite light, but actually it was really hard. So I'm weighing out around 50 grams for me and my partner. It was very satisfying to chop because it was so dry almost. Close up of how interesting the texture is on the bottom and in the middle. And then scooping all of this loveliness into not quite boiling water, as it says on the packet as well. You don't want to be boiling your cacao too hot, it will just make it bitter and potentially burn it as well. Stirring continuously to let all that cacao butter or the foam on top to melt away. This can take around 5 minutes or longer depending on the cacao. And turning down the heat as well. As you can see, all the glittery cacao butter on top means that this brew is ready. Satisfying cacao pour. And then I got it everywhere. Hello and welcome back to another tasting. I have my Vai Cacao here today from Costa Rica, which is a place I've never tried cacao from before, so that's really exciting. A completely different part of the world, and I think Costa Rica is quite new to growing cacao. So what Vai Cacao's website says about this cacao is that it's from the Apala and Guatuso plantations in Costa Rica, that the genetics of the varieties are local. The roasting is short and light. This is fantastic, the amount of information on this. And the processing is stone ground, not concave and not tempered. It tastes of coffee, caramel, tobacco and brown tropical fruit. And that the bitter intensity is medium to high, and that due to its Acriola genetics, Criolla is one of like the best main cacao breeds, but this is Criolla genetics. It has a light brown colour. So I bought the Explorer box, and that was €73.90, and then €21 shipping. So in total, I spent €94.90, which doesn't really get much different or less when I put it into pounds. So let's just call it I basically spent 90 quid on 5 different types of cacao. But I do these so you don't have to. So let's give it a taste and see if it tastes like tobacco and dark tropical fruit and it's bitter. I'd definitely say it's quite savoury, like really savoury. I wouldn't actually say it's that bitter. It's very high in cacao butter. As you can see on the inside of my cup, that there's loads of sort of oil, which is the cacao butter, and it's not too thick. So I thought from trying Ecuadorian and Peruvian cacao that the more cacao butter, the thicker the brew would get or would feel in the mouth, but actually it feels quite light in my mouth and it's not a really unpleasant bitterness. I can see where that smoky tobacco-y comes in the aftertaste, and it is quite fruity, and yet on that sort of brown fruit. They call it dark fruit, but yes, brown, because I'd say it's kind of a fermenting kind of fruit taste, which might actually be similar to what the cacao fruit tastes like, because these are just the seeds of the cacao pod and the beans are what this is made out of, but it's covered in a layer of pulp and fruit. So that's probably what I'm tasting. As for coffee, maybe that kind of like that light bitterness in the aftertaste might be kind of coffee-y, but when I was cooking it, it smelled very savoury. It's very pleasant. It's keeping my lips well moisturised. It's quite nice in that lightness that it has. And I'd say that because it's kind of similar to a Peruvian cacao, it might be a bit more energetic, but not quite as much from what like I can feel and taste in it. It feels like a slightly calmer Peruvian cacao, just in the way like that it feels in my mouth and the drinking it. It's definitely a very complex cacao with that fruitiness. And I thought it would be kind of fibrous as well, going by what I saw when I was cooking it. But actually it is quite smooth because it's quite watery. For lack of a better term, I need to find a better word for that. When I say light, that's what I mean. It's like watery, which just sounds horrible. But due to that, it's easy to drink. You can drink it quite quickly because you can swallow it fast without having to think about how thick it is, unlike the ritual cacaos Ecuadorian, Satsuyaku, because that's quite thick. You kind of sit with it for longer, and this is also similar to a cup of coffee like the Peruvian in its like viscosity. I'm sat by the radiator because it's a really cold day and it's quite frosty outside, and it's quite nice as a like winter drink. I feel like I'm transported to a jungle somewhere in Costa Rica, enjoying somewhere a lot warmer, because it's such an interesting flavour in my mouth of that, tropical dark fruits. I don't know whether I'm being swayed by the words that's been written on the website, and it's kind of helpful for me to see those words for me to kind of pin stuff on, but then I'm not necessarily forming my own opinion. So I went for savoury as a flavour profile, whereas they say tobacco and brown tropical fruit. Oh, here we go. Now I'm getting near the bottom. It's getting a bit more grainy. I don't know if you can see those little darker splotches in amongst the kind of cacao butter. But it's not unpleasant. I've tried some other cacao, I think it was a Mexican cacao, and that was really fibrous and I really felt I actually had to chew it. So this isn't too bad. That kind of adds a thickness towards the bottom. Always note when drinking cacao, swirl it constantly when when you have space in the cup to do so. That's why I like the blue mug that I normally drink from, but I thought that I would swap it and change it up so you guys could look at different mugs from my collection. I do enjoy the Vai Cacao's ethics as a general brand that ships out cacao. I'll be reviewing the other ones, but I'll say a little bit about them now, which is that they also are a chocolatier, so they also have actual chocolate, not just ceremonial grade cacao. So this is their ceremonial grade cacao, but they also do chocolate and mix that up, and they seem to be very on it and transparent with where they get their cacao from, and their Instagram is amazing to see where it's come from. They put lots of videos up of the cacao making process, which is wonderful to see because all of this is made away from England and we're so disconnected. We just get the end product, which is packaged and, you know, sold in whatever way they fancy. And it's interesting to see what people write on the back of their bags, because this is just cacao, but depending on what buzzwords they want to add, for example, gluten and soy free. I would hope that if I was just buying cacao, it would be gluten and soy free. No sugar added, minimally processed, vegan friendly. I mean, another thing people like to see vegan friendly. I would also hope that that would just come naturally. But they're buzzwords that people like to put on to add to marketing. So just, you get this great big long list of stuff here that seems rather unnecessary. But it also does have some nice information above that that's written in a kind of confusing way to read, like naturally low in sugar. I don't know if cacao has any sugar in it because it is just the bean of it. A natural aphrodisiac, high in fibre, source of minerals. And I would say this one is high in fibre because it does have those little fibres at the bottom. Cacao boosts brain levels of serotonin and generates loads of energy. Magnesium, potassium, iron and antioxidants, natural mood elevator. Which it is, they're not wrong. But I do find the back of this packet that there's like a lot going on it, but they do also have instructions. The only thing that's annoying is that there's no sealable clip, as you saw me wanting to seal it back up again. So they even say, where's the peg gone? They even say on their website that it's got like 8 or 10 servings per 200 gram bag, and cacao needs to be kept airtight. Like most things need to be kept airtight, otherwise they might go a bit funny. So it would have been nicer if they had a resealable, but peg works, whatever. I will say with this cacao, it does feel like you need to want to have this experience because it's quite an experience, I will say, with the fruity taste. If you're not ready to sit there and enjoy such complexity, then a different cacao might be better suited to you. I think maybe this one would be a nice maybe afternoon cacao, or maybe 11s is if you have time to sit down and enjoy it. So rather than it being the thing you drink first thing in the morning, where you might not be able to handle the fruitiness and the tobacco-iness, the smokiness, savouriness of it, then I would maybe go for something mellower, because this is quite light, but not very bitter. I would say when they say that it's medium high bitterness, I don't really get much bitterness. It's more fruity. It's not sweet, but it's more of like the fruity sweetness and more of that fermented brown tropical fruit, like a brown banana kind of thing, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So thank you so much for watching. Have you ever tried cacao from Costa Rica? Would you say that I described it correctly, or are there different ways of describing Costa Rican cacao? Is that what Costa Rican cacao tastes like? But have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one when we jet around the world and try some cacao from somewhere else. Don't forget to like and subscribe, pressing hearts, ringing bells, whatever it is that YouTube wants you to do. Anything that you can do really helps my channel out, so thank you so much for doing any of that. Yeah. And if you want to subscribe, there's like a thing here, and if you want to watch another video, then there's a video there. I'll wait. Or I can just sit here all day and we can just drink cacao together as my end card. Can you see the bottom of my cup?